Speaking of swagger, I'm excited for this next panel, which is, that was just the warm-up act. We now have some amazing luminaries in writing, customer success, in the subscription economy to have a conversation with us about what's happening in the customer success world. So I'm going to pull out my amazing script. And let me first bring on the stage one of the pioneers of SaaS and my personal friend, Tien Tzuo. Tien? There. Oh, that's me. Actually, let's get Tien on. There you go. Great. Awesome. There's Tien. You got your own baseball card, Tien? Awesome. Thanks, man.
Come out as a Gangnam Style Psy.
I know, exactly. Yeah. We should have got you an outfit. Yeah. Tien was employee number 11 at Salesforce. It was 11? Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
That's awesome. And he served in many key roles, including Chief Marketing Officer at Salesforce, which has got to have been a hard job. Chief Strategy Officer, and then he became founder and CEO of Zuora, a company that's really pioneered this concept of the subscription economy and is building the next generation commerce platform for the subscription economy.
That's right, yeah.
Great to have you back here. You're a Pulse regular at this point, right?
This is, how many years have you done this?
This is third year.
So this is my third year.
That's awesome, man.
Third year.
So, welcome back to Tien. Great.
That's right.
So, you guys identified this trend several years ago at Zuora of the subscription economy. You identified it, you popularized it, you've kind of helped create that movement. And when you look at subscription economy and you think about the topic of this panel of Moneyball, what's the parallel between what data did for baseball and what the subscription economy is doing for the business-to-business and software industry?
Yeah, I mean, the most obvious thing is both have completely disrupted their industries, right? And so you look at sort of a before and after image of how baseball worked before, right? Reading the book, looking at the movie, right? And then bringing the new techniques, and it really worked the same way for the last 20, 30 years. It was suboptimal. It was this sort of black magic thing that really wasn't working, right? And someone really shed light into, this could be very, very different. And that's fundamentally transformed how baseball works today. And every team needs to do those techniques. You look at the subscription economy, it's the same thing. It's the same thing as saying, if I ran my business as selling a product, I don't think about customers, I don't think about an ongoing relationship with the customers. That doesn't work anymore, right? And once one company in the industry does it, really all the other companies really have to follow. You've seen it in the software industry, you've seen it in the media industry, you're seeing it in the manufacturing industry with connected devices, which is pretty exciting.
That's awesome. Well, Thanks. So with the author coming up, what's your favorite Michael Lewis book?
My favorite Michael Lewis, we had a chance to talk about it backstage here. And so obviously there's two. The obvious one is going to be The New Thing, having lived here in Silicon Valley through the dot-com era, and the phrase, you do the math, I still use it every once in a while in an investor pitch because it seems to work. But they actually, as a father,
worked for you guys. Yeah.
As a father of a 6-year-old, I was just saying the favorite book is Home Game. Home Game with the family and the bumbling stories of fatherhood, first-time father. That was my favorite book.
Well, that's great, Tien. Well, please have a seat. Stick around. Now we're going to welcome our next, second base person, Jason Lemkin. For most of the audience, Jason does not need an introduction. His day job is general partner at Storm Ventures, but I think most of you probably know him as the voice behind SaaStr. Let's welcome Jason Lemkin from SaaStr.
All right.
Jason is the #1 person on Quora, I think. #1 writer on Quora.
Try to be in the top 5 or the top 10.
More fans than Taylor Swift on Twitter, I think, something like that, close. Basically, Taylor Swift of the SaaS industry. Is that
all right.
kind of...
That we can just agree to.
I think, okay, that's good. Awesome. Well, Jason, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And, it's always awesome to see you here. And you guys do this amazing event called SaaStr Annual. It was about a couple months ago.
Yep.
SaaStr Annual and Pulse are kind of like a baseball, a glove and a ball in the glove, right?
I was going to say Pippen and Jordan, but that would be absolutely wrong in this setting. So yeah.
Okay, we'll adjust that metaphor next time.
Yeah.
So you invest in, advise, and mentor some of the best next generation SaaS and subscription companies out there. The next Salesforces, the next Workdays and Marketos and others.
Yep.
What do you see different about this next generation of companies from the first generation?
Yeah, so 1.5 things that's particularly relevant to this audience. So first of all, the best subscription and SaaS companies are growing faster than ever, right? Slack is growing far faster than Yammer, right?
Unbelievable.
And Yammer grew far faster than, say, Box, and it's not because of the products, it's the generations, right? The best companies, this is a subscription economy, right? Software is eating the world, so if you hit it, you grow faster than ever, right? And the interesting corollary of this is when you do, Customer success gets far more important than sales, right? The more slowly you grow, the more you got to just put all the wood behind getting that next customer. But as you grow faster, that customer success is 90% of the lifetime revenue of your average customer. So hypergrowth means the C-suite and everybody needs to invest more in customer success, right? And it means everyone here is even more important the faster you grow.
I think that plays to the audience. Nicely done,
Yes,
Jason. Thank you
thank
so
you,
much.
yeah.
What's your favorite Michael Lewis book?
Liar's Poker.
Liar's Poker?
Yep. I realized that the world might not be a complete meritocracy, and I decided to go into startups and not Wall Street.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jason. Have a seat.
All right, thanks for having me.
Stick around. All right, it's my honor to welcome the man of the hour. We'll put Jason on base there. And welcome the man of the hour, Michael Lewis. Michael, as most of you know, is a best-selling author and financial journalist. Most of us have read his classics like Liar's Poker or New Thing, and seen the movies based on his work like Gainsight, which I love, and of course, Moneyball. Please give a round of applause to Michael. Welcome, Michael.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Awesome.
We're going to do this thing?
Yeah, we'll do one. How are you doing? How are you doing? Easy question.
I'm doing great.
Awesome, great. Well, let's have a seat and we'll have a conversation.
Yeah.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Great, awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna kick it off and then actually Jason and Tien are gonna jump in with questions. Really, we'll just keep this interactive. You're gonna get grilled from all sides. So let's start out with one of your earliest books. We just talked about it. I remember reading Liar's Poker, which for those of you that don't know, is a riveting tale about investment banking in the 80s. It was one of my favorite books growing up. I almost became an investment banker. And I remember reading that you thought it was a cautionary tale about the job. In fact, on Wikipedia it says, quote, "The book is an unflattering portrayal of Wall Street traders and salesmen, their personalities, their beliefs, and their work practices." What does it mean that when I was a college student, I badly wanted to work in investment banking after reading that book?
That you were like every other college student. I didn't think of it as an unflattering portrayal of Wall Street, but I did think, so to the extent, I thought it was just an outrageous story. That's what I thought. I thought that the financial system could do nothing more absurd than to pay me hundreds of thousands of dollars to give other people financial advice. And the fact that they were doing it, I thought it signaled some sort of top. And someone needed to capture this, else no one would believe it. To the extent there was a message, what bothered me at the time, and it still bothers me, is that industry's ability to suck young talent into it for no particular reason, not because people actually love finance, but because the money, the upfront money seems better. That was really disturbing. I watched all kinds of friends who had actual purpose in life and were distracted from the purpose because they thought it would just be stupid not to take the job at Goldman Sachs. Now, the book had the opposite of the intended effect. 6 months after it came out, I had 1,000 letters from kids from Ohio State University, and they all said the same thing. "Dear Mr. Lewis, I read your book about how to get ahead on Wall Street. I think I grasped all of your tips, but is there anything you didn't put in the book because I'm even more eager?" And just to punctuate this thing, it was really odd. When I came back to Wall Street, I thought I was done with it, but when the financial crisis happened, the material was so good I really couldn't not write about it. I went to talk to the people who had lost the money for the big firms, people who'd made trades that had cost Morgan Stanley $10 billion or Citigroup $50 billion. And I'd be out for beers with youngish people who'd made these catastrophic decisions. And to a person, they would all say at some point, "The only reason I'm talking to you about what happened is that you're the reason I'm in the business." And I said, what do you mean? And they said, "I read Liar's Poker when I was in college, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, but then I realized I wanted to be a Wall Street trader." And after I heard this 4 or 5 times, I thought, Jesus Christ, I created this financial crisis. And the reason is, why it probably appealed to you is that when you're in college, you don't, unless you're a really unusual person, you really don't know what the world is going to value in you or what they're going to value you for. And you kind of suspect, rightly, you don't know very much. And the world's probably, there's some risk there. And here's this story about a kid, me, who clearly knew nothing. And Wall Street still hurled large sacks of money at his feet. And so anybody who kind of had that insecurity, I don't know anything, what will people pay me for? Well, Wall Street, they'll pay you if you know nothing. They paid him and he knew nothing. So it The problem with the industry and the problem with the book was it slaked that insecurity.
It's great.
If you feel guilty about the financial crisis, I mean, Liar's Poker I was in New York. Liar's Poker was required reading if you lived in New York, but the new thing was required living if you were in Silicon Valley, and I was going back and forth working for a tech company. But you know, if Liar's Poker was a reason so many people into the financial industry, I think the new thing for me, at least, was a reason to go into the tech industry, right? And so you get credit for this. You get credit for this, in addition to the financial crisis, and hopefully that's a saving grace.
No. I was hoping you were going to say home game was the reason you had children.
Home game is how I got through children.
But this was so refreshing to me when I came out here, and I came out in the middle of the internet bubble, and boom and bubble, and I found it so refreshing because I felt like for the first time I was surrounded by young people who were actually passionate about what they were doing. It wasn't just the money, and it's just a huge difference in approach, and it was all about kind of creating stuff. And I felt on the back end of the internet bubble, when all came crashing down for whatever reason, people were constantly asking me, now, don't you think it was all absurd and ridiculous? And I wrote many things in defense of it. I thought it was just the best thing that ever happened, almost the mirror image of Wall Street, because it sucked all these young people into the idea that what you should do with your life is create a business, and to create something, build something, take a risk. And I thought that was terrific. I thought an overinvest, even if it was inefficient, this kind of messy overinvestment in tech and in startups was socially very useful.
There you go. Silicon Valley's noble. You heard it here. That's great. But you live in Berkeley, though.
I live across the
Hey,
bay.
Berkeley is a little more noble than San Francisco. So
What makes you say that?
You guys are very thoughtful over
No,
there.
you're saying what you want to say is Berkeley is more self-righteous than San Francisco. That's a very different thing. It's a very different thing.
A lot of my Berkeley grad friends are pretty self-righteous. I think that is a good point. So let's switch gears and talk about the book of the hour here, and really the theme of this whole conference. Really excited to have you here. And you know, Moneyball, I think it's really influenced a lot of people. I mean, you did an amazing job with the book. It's an unbelievable story, made into an amazing movie. And for the 1 to 2 people in the audience that didn't read it or didn't see it, the book chronicles the success of the Oakland A's baseball team, who used data to make player decisions and really got beyond the kind of gut instincts. And one of the things we talk about a lot at Gainsight and in this conference is how business is kind of evolving that way too, right? A lot of business for a long time was about gut instinct. And you know, we see it changing. Tell us how you think Moneyball potentially applies to business and what lessons and parallels you can draw.
Well, just back up a little bit. I didn't write the book because I wasn't particularly interested in baseball. I was interested in baseball, but I didn't think of it as a baseball book. I mean, back away from this phenomenon. You had this team that was spending a fifth of what the richest team was spending on players and winning as many games as anybody. And that is a curiosity, right? How on earth do you compete with so few resources? And if the market were efficient and everybody had the same information and understanding, the rich teams would just, to this day, would just buy up all the best players, and the poor teams wouldn't stand a chance. So there was a moment when I realized that what the Oakland A's were doing was not a baseball story; it was a business story, and it was actually to get to know. What they were doing was they were using data that other people either didn't have or didn't pay attention to value players differently and value strategies differently. And it was pretty low-hanging fruit in those days. I mean, it wasn't that complicated. And a lot of the information that they were using was stuff that was freely available on the web that just other baseball teams did not want to avail themselves to. They were just not open to new ideas. But they were conducting this kind of lab experiment in what is a good baseball player. And the players themselves, I'm trying to think what the analogy would be with you, but maybe like if the customers on the other end of your analytics are all of a sudden surprised by how they're being treated or handled in a pleasant way, but you might not want to tell them because it would just confuse them. Billy Beane said, don't tell the players what we're doing here. But did I just go out?
You guys, I think he's giving you a handheld. Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right. He said, yeah, we're doing all this stuff with analytics, but we don't tell the players what we're doing because it would just confuse them. So I spent time with the players trying to see just how much it would cost. Why, they wanted to know why they were hitting leadoff or why they were playing first base for the first time in their lives, so on and so forth. When I was getting to know these guys, the players who were on the receiving end, the customers in a funny way, I can remember one day, about 6 weeks into the season, I was sitting in the Oakland A's clubhouse and watching the players come out of the showers. And for the first time, I saw the Oakland A's naked, and it was an absolutely appalling sight. I mean, it was they were fat.
They weren't all 6 and 8 packs.
No, just the opposite. They were all defective.
Yeah.
They were all obviously physically defective. And I mean, one guy had 2 club feet. Everybody had love handles. It was just, they didn't look, if you line them up against the wall and ask anybody what they did for a living, no one would guess they were professional athletes. And I went with this observation to the A's front office and said, it's funny, I just saw your guys without their clothes on, and it is kind of disgusting. And they said, this is the point. They said, we're in the market for players that get misvalued by the marketplace, that are misunderstood, because everybody's going by what they see, by their gut instincts. And when what they see is physically repulsive, they're less likely to value. And they said this, it's a strange thing even now about baseball players, that the better looking ones are more likely to be properly valued or overvalued. Wow. And so think about this. This game has been played for more than a century. People stop thinking of them. Don't think of them as athletes. Think of them as employees of a company. That the baseball player is on the field doing his job in front of millions of people. All those people think they know what a good baseball player is. The job is basically the same as it's been for a century, and it's not like there isn't data. There's been statistics in baseball forever. It's a very kind of, as sports go, kind of number-oriented game. And even in this game, even in this business, the employees could be so misvalued that you could build a juggernaut out of undervalued ones because the market didn't understand. So from my point of view, the story was really about how markets get things wrong, how they don't avail themselves to information or insights, and that if a baseball player can be this badly misvalued, maybe simply because of even how he looks, who can't be? So it just suggested that, look, as Bill James, who was kind of the father of this movement, who was the first person to say, maybe if we actually start thinking about the numbers in a sensible way, we'll come to different conclusions about who's good and who's not. He says to this day, look at a baseball field, that's a field of ignorance. There's still so much to know. And the way we're going to get at it is through data, measuring new things, interesting analytics. And if it's true there, it's true in your business. It's true in everybody's business. So I was very aware of this. What moved me about the story was it was about people. That that in every organization, the people are misvalued. That the organizations do not have good tools for valuing their employees. So it applied directly to every enterprise.
That's great. Jason, I think
Yeah, Michael, let me ask you a follow-up question, because a lot of the folks here in the audience are trying to be at the cutting edge or at the cutting edge and bringing data to a space customer success that's been very qualitative before, right? So they're investing the time to play Moneyball in their space. And how long does that competitive advantage last, right? There was a bit of the coda with Moneyball, and how long did that competitive... So if these guys spend all of the next year bringing true data science to a very soft, qualitative space, do they get a 5-year head start on the competition, or how long do they maintain the edge?
So the answer to that is probably it depends on the industry, the honest answer. But I think but it's a surprisingly long time.
Yeah, surprisingly long. Right.
Now, baseball is in some ways, in this case, a bad example, because baseball management was when the A's started doing this so numbskulled, so thick-headed.
Yes.
I mean, as Billy Bean liked to say, he said, "Look."
You think customer success 3-4 years ago was always different?
No,
I mean, there may have been.
Well, maybe,
you never know, right?
But there's really no. it is true that you can't be too stupid to play baseball.
Yeah, I mean, it's
it's
smart,
like
it's
the
just an
sport,
evolving
and the
space,
ranks
yeah.
of management were drawn from players.
Yes.
And so it was like, there's no filter for intelligence for baseball. In basketball and football, it's different. So I would say, so if there is an analytical edge gained in baseball in the year 2000, it's more sustainable than it is even in football and I think and in basketball, because the management is just more intelligent. However, two things. One is, it is amazing, as Billy Beane likes to say, how resistant organizations are to change. So if you are bringing change to an industry, you have a natural advantages, and the competition generally is not going to be looking to change the way they're doing it, because change, especially on the heels of someone else doing it, is an acknowledgement you've done something wrong. And so there's that inertia built into the process, right? And then the very act of innovating is addictive. It becomes a habit. So, and this is what's happened in baseball. All the things that gave the Oakland Athletics an advantage in 2002 when I wrote the book were by 2008, those opportunities had vanished in the marketplace.
Yep.
However, what hadn't happened is the other organizations had adapted. They had taken specific insights, but they had not become themselves innovative. So the A's were able to find other things. I mean, it's a field of ignorance. There are further opportunities, and if you're the organization that is finding the opportunity, you're always ahead. You're always ahead. And so that's the other big thing.
It strikes me too that in baseball, it felt like, in at least the statistics that were cited in the book, were all public information, right? I mean, players move around, you have a history, and everybody has access to the same data, right? Is there anything that they did in terms of trying to get data that nobody else would have to give them an edge?
So when I was marinating in the organization, not really, because they didn't have to, because even the publicly available information was not being intelligently used. Statistics were just being mangled. And so the answer was no in the beginning. Now, yes. Now there are all sorts of things, and this is across professional sports. It is amazing what is being measured now on a basketball court or on a football field or on a baseball field compared to what was measured then. When a ball comes off a bat in a Major League Baseball game, every front office knows what angle it came off the bat. They know where in a grid of like 1,000 squares on the field where it landed. They know how far the players were when they started, before the ball was hit. So the next stage of analytics was finding better things, intelligent things to measure, measuring new things. But in the beginning, it wasn't necessary at all. There was plenty that was being measured, and the measurements just weren't being used intelligently.
That's great, Michael. Thank you. I've got a couple closing questions to kind of help wrap us up. So, if you were to write another book about Silicon Valley, some argue that, although maybe we're not at the same level as the new thing, it's definitely gotten crazy again. What would the new book be about? Maybe I'm stealing your thunder.
No, I don't have a book about Silicon Valley in mind. I do. What interests me, I mean, we started to chat about this in the backstage a bit. The relationship of the financial markets to the tech industry, to the startup industry, has changed a lot in the last 15 years. The public markets are further away from it. I mean, people aren't starting companies and seeing how fast they can get to the public markets. And there is a vast reservoir of private capital that is, seemingly available like that to an awful lot of entrepreneurs. I am interested in writing about the nexus, about the relationship between the entrepreneurs and the capital, and the private capital, because it is very interesting, and why VCs make decisions, or why private equity, or even mutual funds, making decisions to invest in these risky enterprises. And so I thought, I'm not going to do it. I had an idea for I wanted to write a Bitcoin story, and then I gave up just because it had been so overwritten. But the interesting thing about Bitcoin to me, and you could substitute a dozen businesses for it, is, well, the original idea is very interesting. The original idea is kind of libertarian crackpot. Nobody, except for some people in this room, are going to encrypt their money successfully, and they're going to be comfortable with that process. They're going to need the very institutions that Bitcoin is meant to undermine need to be there for Bitcoin to thrive as a real business. And so there's this next stage for Bitcoin to become a big success, and it's persuasive entrepreneurs who will build the institutions that are anathema to the libertarians who invented Bitcoin. And there are a couple of them who actually almost just by themselves sold the whole capital, all of capitalism, all the venture capitalists, the private equity firms, on the plausibility of this. And that conversation is what interests me. It's like how someone takes an idea and makes it real to someone with money to the point where that person is willing to part with their money to fund it.
So you're saying it wasn't a good idea that we took all the money we raised at Gainsight and stored as Bitcoin? That was a bad idea? Yeah, okay.
If it's stored,
if my investors are here,
if you're so long as you're not storing yourself and relying on your own wits to keep it safe, I think you're okay.
Okay, so if you do write this book about Silicon Valley, the question on all our minds is, if Gainsight ends up in the book, how do I get Brad Pitt to play me, not Jonah Hill? What's involved in making? Are you the guy to talk to, or is there somebody in the movie side of things to talk to? I just need to make sure that it's cast right.
So there's that old joke about the Polish actress who made the mistake, who wanted to be in the movies, and she made the mistake of sleeping with the writer. That you have the writer has absolutely no influence whatsoever on who gets to play you. Nobody cares what the writer thinks. The truth of the matter is the movie industry would really prefer that the writer of the book be dead, because then he's not around. Then he's not around to complain about how they ruined his book. However, Brad Pitt every now and then emails. I can put in. I'll put in a word. I don't think the trading card picture you got up there. We shouldn't show him that. It's funny watching these things happen, because I don't write them thinking they're going to be. Who would have thought Moneyball would be a movie? Billy Beane, when I wrote the book, did not know the book was going to be about him. He just knew he'd let me in, and other organizations had let me in. When he saw the book was about him, he was deeply unsettled. He didn't like the attention. They came to him to buy the movie rights, and he said no. The book is too much already. I don't want to be in a movie. I persuaded him that, in fact, they never make these movies. They buy your book, they buy your magazine, and they don't make it. They just pay you $50,000 every 18 months for an option, and I got him to the point where he believed that. And so he signed the deal, and every 18 months for 6 or 7 years, he would get this check, and he would start calling me. He said, "You're a genius. This is fantastic. It's free money for nothing." And then one day he calls me and he says, "You bastard. Brad Pitt just called me and he's coming over and my wife is putting on makeup."
That is awesome. Okay, so I always like to close out panels with one word association. I'm going to go from Tien to Jason to Michael. A few words. You have to think of the word that first comes to your mind for each of these. Tien, you start. Wall Street.
Greed is good.
Okay, Jason, Wall Street.
Where unicorns go to fail.
Whoa. Michael, Wall Street.
Material.
Material, good. Okay, Tien, Silicon Valley.
Pied Piper.
Nice. Very well done. Jason, Silicon Valley.
It's no longer about silicon, nor does it take place in the valley.
I live in the valley. Okay, Michael Lewis, Silicon Valley.
Asperger's.
Asperger's, very true. Very, very true. Okay, second to last one, Tien, Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift, gosh. We just talked to her backstage. She's pretty cool.
Yeah, cool. Okay, Jason, Taylor Swift.
Study her. She's an amazing entrepreneur. Right?
Amazing, right?
Amazing.
Michael, Taylor Swift.
Gifted.
Gifted, absolutely. All right, Tien, customer success. Take us home.
Gainsight.
Oh, wow. You don't have to do that. Jason, customer success, not Gainsight, something else.
It's the new Moneyball, right? It's where 90% of the revenue is, right? Tell that to your boss.
Michael Lewis, customer success.
Happy reader.
Happy reader?
Yeah, my customers are readers.
Awesome, there we go. Make your customers successful. Huge round of applause for this massive, massive panel. Michael, that was awesome. Thank you so much. Really